cool. So a poem for you. There are times when you find yourself in the house of a crumbling promise. Broken tiles, ruined doorways, busted windows. It may be hard to dream a different future in such a place. It may feel foolish to proclaim your architectural imaginings when you still sleep where the rain seeps in a bedroom with no ceiling. Prophecies proclaimed may feel like lies, said through teeth filled with longings for some bones to believe in. What can broken houses teach us about broken hearts? What does the snail say about the moment between shells? There are many ways to leave what no longer shelters you. Sometimes you wait, sometimes you must stay still, captivated by water that drips through cracks in old ways of being, captivated by the light of distant stars. Sometimes you are compelled by knowing that you can be grown again. You can almost picture it. Your spiral doorway, your blueprint flows out of you. And sometimes you must go exposed. You must be the soft body, pressed to the earth, unsure yet unwilling to carry the heavy pieces of your last year's best intentions. I wrote this poem 5 months after my ex-husband and I decided to get a divorce. I had scheduled a dissertation writing retreat in the desert, committed to finishing, and the retreat became long, tearful walks alone in the desert, late nights looking for apartments online, calling surprised friends and telling them what happened. I got less than 5 pages written. A UU minister, who Julia knows, and a longtime mentor offered to go look at new apartments with me. I had a tight budget, which is an unfriendly and not uncommon reality in Los Angeles, California. And the first place we visited was hosted by a warm and caring person, but was ultimately just a small converted space in a backyard, still half filled with paint for her house, for a nice $975 per month. I almost said yes. The mentor texted her husband, a rabbi. "You can live with us," she said. And I did. They had a small house in the backyard. It was not being used just yet. She was a minister and a gardener. It was blue with white trim. And there was a cat, very weird cat, Braven, they had adopted off the street, and huge trees covered their property, and I was adopted, and I was home. And I officially moved into what I have called the divorce cottage. The divorce cottage is the place you are so grateful to land in because you could not stay where you were. But it's a place you cannot stay in because you're not yet where you are going and you're not yet who you are. And for those of you who have been through these kinds of upsets, we know lots of these divorce spaces. There's divorce sofas and divorce garages, divorce hotel rooms and divorce studios and divorce Harley-Davidsons and divorce RVs. I see you, all of you. These are the places we go for the moment between shells. No longer where we were or who we were, but not yet where we are headed or who we know we are becoming. And nothing can be done about it. Nothing can be rushed. You have to be shellless for a while. And what I learned and had not expected to learn from divorce was that interdependence was not just an idea, it was a reality. When it was time to move, I was overwhelmed. Well trained in the art of incredible independence and self-reliance, I knew I could do it all by myself. And as I stumbled around realizing that a move takes everyone, I texted a friend, and suddenly people showed up at my door with all their reusable grocery bags, hauling out my library of books and moving them to my new place. Andrew and I, my beloved, had just realized our connection. And we knew we were both messes coming out of fresh breakups, but for our second date, he showed up with his farm truck and moved me out of my ex-husband's house. Very romantic. So there I was, moved by friends, housed by friends, and employed by friends. Sitting in the dark of my divorce cottage with nothing to do but to wait. And now when I look back on that history, or we look back at our histories, these things may feel inevitable. Of course that happened so that that could happen. Of course Andrew moved me. Of course friends showed up. Of course the mentor, bless her, Reverend Tara, offered me her home. And of course she had built the home in the first place and had left it empty. Of course, all these things happening, but it is not quite so, especially in the moment. It is horribly uncertain. It is built entirely on multiple little risks. It is the kind of waiting that is full of agitation and anxiety, fits and starts. Attempts that I had of waiting, the instability became a meditation. Sometimes I could very reverentially, after all, sit in my divorce cottage and think about how this was like riding the waves of life and how in touch I was with my lack of control and how important that was as a spiritual lesson sometimes. Other times, it was horribly agitated. I'd pace my house crying and writing poetry and not a dissertation. And I would move on through my home wondering when I would feel like myself again. I would look up jobs online, any job that would make me feel useful again, stable again, like myself again, when I'd realize I was forcing it. So then I thought I'd move. I'll find an apartment, any apartment, a building, any building, so that I could feel like I had a home again, and I realized I was forcing it. I had to wait. Of course, this story goes that after a year in my in-between space, and years before that, I would be encouraged by that same mentor to look at the jobs board on the UUA. And then I would risk looking at churches who were also in a shell-less moment, looking for an interim minister. And of course, I would see your listing. And of course, I would interview with your transition team, and then we would both risk saying yes to each other. And then I would ultimately come here just to lead you into risking to say yes to another person in a year and a half. And that person is somewhere in the world now waiting on their way. And there I was. But this time, there we were on our way to Tucson. It seems inevitable. And yet it was not inevitable. It was the accumulation of many risks, many moves, and much surrender. And if I am lucky, I will give a sermon 20 years from now in a different community and in a different place. And if I am lucky, I might start that sermon with where I exactly ended this one. And that sermon will tell the tale of the next 20 years of moves that I will have made to reach the not inevitable place where I am surprised to find home and meaning and family and belonging that I could have never have dreamed of from where I am now. So the task, it seems, is not to finally arrive anywhere, but to be one who always risks arriving where you are. Quite literally, surprised by where you are, seized and surrendered to arrive again and again, not of our own hard-fought making, not just because of our elaborate plans and brilliant strategy, but because we have been seized by life, by interdependence, by something that we were not totally in control of, but knew it when we saw it, because we waited. When we get there, and heaven knows when we'll get there, it seems that people are waiting for us. That we build things that we might not live into, and that we enter things other people left. That we do things for the well-being and wholeness and dignity of a people and a planet that goes beyond it, and that we are recipients of that same gift from people we will never know. Again and again, we risk moving, not just for ourselves, but for some future we know we are being lured into. And as people with a moral and an ethical center, we risk the move towards more kindness and more justice. We move towards it from where we are again and again and again. We keep moving, keep giving, keep receiving both. We both actively move and we are actively surrendering. Now, Kathy Kuzminoff hooked me up with a reflection she gave on November 1st, 2015. It is called The Resilience Legacy of MVUU, 1969 to 2015. Brilliant title. As I read it, I read familiar names. 1992, Chuck Tatum is president. You all purchased the property on Cromwell. Ann Tatum acts as a long-range planning director, of course. And Leon, you start an endowment fund. You begin to expand your land. The names continue. Ron Meikle, David Green, Meg Kidwell, Conrad Paul, Betty Meikle, Larry Jagnow, Karen Boothroyd. There have been hard-fought plans. Brilliant and important strategies. You have made 30 years worth of calls to action. 30 years. Multiple capital campaigns. People gave to a dream even when the dream was uncertain, even when there were missteps, even when things fell wildly apart, even when you hurt each other. People gave and left. People gave and received. People gave and came. There were times when you found yourself in the house of a crumbling promise. Broken tiles, ruined doorways, and busted windows. Yet there you were, and here you are, arriving again. Today you vote to purchase a building with its own story and its own human history. That building was owned and dreamed of by a family who had no idea that one day, inevitably, you would want to find sanctuary in the home they built for their loved ones. What a surprise. I know today's vote is not a foregone conclusion. It's a vote. That's important. And the PMT, I have witnessed time and time again, over and over again, make every effort that you could arrive today clear, grounded, and believing what you know to be true. So whatever happens today, let us remember, you have risked and surrendered many, many times. This will not be the last time. But this can be an important time, an arrival with a capital A. On behalf of you, the people who are here, and the people you are becoming, because you too are not yet done with your changes. This building will also nurture you as you evolve. And for the people who are coming, the people who need us to be risky and interdependent and trusting and willing to co-create with each other, something worth arriving in. This has been a good divorce church. Yeah? This has been a good divorce church. It has housed you well between shells. In Kathy's document, it was in 1987 that a group of you believed that Tucson should have 2 liberal, progressive spaces of care and justice. You ventured out of your shell, you built a board, I see you, and you met out of Claire's kitchen and you planned services out of your cars. If you were there at that time, raise your hand. Higher. And if you arrived in the last 2 years, raise your hand. Look at what you built. I particularly want to thank you. In 1987, I was born. So if you said around Claire's kitchen that we need to build a faith that the future can walk into, you were talking about someone like me. More people are coming, and they need us to be risky, trusting, and radical. Let's do it together. Let us be moved. Amen.